I am focusing on shame and the impact of shame. And I want to start by telling a bit of my own story because I carried so much shame in my life. And for me, shame is one of the driving forces of addiction. That certainly has been true for me. So I came into the world and I remember the experience of being a young person and feeling so happy. As a matter of fact, my mother often says I was one of the happiest babies and toddlers that she had ever met. She actually likes to tell that story in front of my sister too and compare that she wasn't so happy, but that's a whole other story for a different time. But I do remember being really happy, and I remember feeling very, very connected with myself and the world. I remember laying in my backyard on a hot summer day, those days that felt like they lasted forever. I also remember the experience of that connection and joy coming to an end. Around the age 7, I remember a sensation, a physical sensation of my heart closing. What led to that was multifaceted. I grew up in a family where what I saw, what I heard, and the energy I experienced were 3 totally different things. I also grew up in a time and a place where I quickly realized that being a little gay boy wasn't going to go over so well, and that there was a large portion of people around me that weren't going to accept this little joyous, effervescent boy that was living so out loud. So what I did is I closed off and I shut down. And a big part of that closing off and shutting down was me developing a belief in my own brokenness. Several different events in my early childhood stand out to me as a time that I really closed off. One of them that's showing up for me to share in this moment was my grandmother had a gay brother, and they were born in the early 1900s, so this was not allowed and no one talked about it. I remember being a very, very young boy, and he came over, and I came running out of, I think, the back bedroom of my grandmother's house and threw my arms around him, and he stopped me and he pushed me away, and I remember the energy of this. He said, "Boys don't hug men like that." He was literally infusing his shame into me, and I remember taking on the energy of that. So I walked around from age 7 until 14, believing I was broken. There's something wrong with me. The world is not safe. Of course, I discovered drugs and alcohol brought a lot of relief for me. So in my own journey, and of course I'm not the only one saying this, but drugs and alcohol were never the problem. They were always the solution. And of course, they were a solution that worked really well in the beginning, but at some point did not serve me. We often hear of addiction through the lens of a coping mechanism or a defense mechanism. I actually call addiction a brilliant strategy, because for me, substance use was actually really brilliant at the time, and it actually saved me from this sense of disconnection and this belief in my own brokenness. I got sober just before I turned 21, and I'm really grateful that I've been sober for a little over 34 years. Getting sober was just the first step for me. I didn't yet understand that the drinking really wasn't the problem, the drug use wasn't really the problem. They were symptoms of something. They were managing something. And as I said, they were a brilliant strategy for something. So as I got sober, I quickly realized that what was left for me was this sense of brokenness, this disconnection from my true nature. And so recovery for me became about a couple of different things. One, unlearning, creating a safe space for myself so that I could begin to recognize and unlearn some of these core false beliefs I had about myself. I had spent so many years trying to work on my relationships, try to work on the work situations in my life, if I could just have better communication skills. But those were all symptoms of something. What I came to understand is that my core false beliefs, and the ones that were riddling me or that were really alive in me, were I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough, I am stupid. So I was walking around with this core false belief, these core false beliefs, and I was literally vibrating at that frequency. And I couldn't understand why I kept re-experiencing things that were confirming that core false belief. So in recovery, I recognize that a big part of it is unlearning these core false beliefs that have kept me feeling stuck, and really understanding the frequency or the vibration that these core false beliefs were creating in my life, and how I kept re-experiencing situations to reconfirm that. But the other, and I think perhaps the most important part of recovery for me, was what I call the great remembering, returning to my true nature. As I unlearned all the core false beliefs that I was carrying about myself, as I recognized the narrative about myself was keeping me feeling stuck and limited, I recognized also that recovery was about returning to that essential beingness, remembering that I did come into this world happy, joy-filled, in awe and wonder. And so as I unlearned the core false beliefs, as I created a safe space for myself to heal some of this shame, what I experienced was a reconnection with my true nature. And as I cultivated a relationship with that essential self through prayer, meditation, spending dedicated time in the silence, creating an intimate relationship with my true nature, I recognized that I could break the agreements that I had made with mediocrity. I could let go of those core false beliefs, and I could return to my true nature, my wholeness, that place within me that's unharmed and unharmable. I'm so grateful to have had these few minutes to share with you that little part of my spiritual journey and my recovery story that has allowed me not only to break the cycle of addiction in my life, but to return to this place of wholeness, to return to a life filled with awe, joy, and wonder. Many blessings, and thank you for listening to me. I'm so grateful for our connection.